It's been a year in the making, but finally the family is complete. Introducing the all-new Venom BlackBook Zero 17 Phantom. Here we go. You guys have loved the videos I've been doing so far, so I want to say a massive thank you for the love that you've been showing. We're back here again because of you. And if you haven't seen my first and second in-depth reviews where we looked at the Venom BlackBook 14 Phantom and then the Zero 15 Phantom, please check them out. So they're basically major length deep dives into what I think are some of the best 14-inch and 15-inch ultra portable laptops. There's heaps of chapter timestamps, so you don't have to watch it for 2 hours straight. You can jump straight to the juicy parts if you want. So if you like this type of in-depth review, click like and don't forget to subscribe, as it literally will ensure you keep getting access to video and content like this. Share that love, and the more we receive, the more of these types of videos you're actually going to get to experience and see, and the more reviews we'll be able to bring to you. Now, it's great to see that you are all loving the content so far. Venom has been my main initiator, and the reason I'm covering their gear is not only because I'm a customer and I love what they do, but there's also so much depth to actually cover in the products. So their BlackBook notebook computers have basically long product life cycles, so they're not trying to come out with something new next week. And the whole idea here is that this will mean the videos they're going to stay relevant for much longer than what most other companies do when they try and churn their products for volume. And so their whole product and whole manufacturing approach is around kind of minimizing consumption to actually take a step towards what we call the circular economy. So typically, if you buy a computer off the shelf, most of their kind of the life cycle doesn't really matter. You might use it for a year or two and then throw it away. Hopefully it gets recycled into other things, but there's literally no guarantee. Venom take a much different approach to that, and it's really about having a true circular economy where the belief is that the customers will actually become their future suppliers. And it's how they buy back their BlackBooks for up to 7 years down the track. And with a little bit of work, a bit of polishing up, they're actually good to go for a new home. How good is that? There's literally nothing greener than not having to produce the waste in the first time, and that's how fundamentally they take a look at it. So fixing the problem before it even begins is a super smart way to approach it, and props to Venom for actually taking that approach from the start. Now, if you're working from home, the office, or literally anywhere, this type of notebook or kind of ultra portable, the BlackBook is definitely for you. So I've done the other reviews, so today is all about the big granddaddy, the ultra portable. It's like a sprinting athlete for 100 meters. Think Usain Bolt. If it was a computer, this is the type of thing we're talking about. The ultra portable, all new 2022 Venom BlackBook Zero 17 Phantom. Massive screen, thin bezel, and amazingly portable. And I'm literally the privileged one to have the first computer here in the whole wide world. And obviously someone is enjoying my content. So what we're gonna do is take a deep dive. So the prices you can see on the screen: $13,499 in the US, $2,399 in Australia, $1,700 in Canada, about £1,000, and about $1,149 in Europe. So either way, you can purchase this in basically 6 native currencies, and the shipping is actually included, and it's free, and it's rapid. So it doesn't really get much better than that. It's using the DHL as their global delivery partner. And in the world of today, where delivery is a total pain in the bum and you can be waiting for ages, from my perspective, this is a very much welcome breath of fresh air. So I've checked again, and as with the other BlackBooks available, it's all can be found on the shopvenom.com website. So the pricing's relatively the same, regardless of the currency that you're buying in or wherever in the world that you actually are. So let's take a quick recap around the Venom BlackBooks if you haven't already seen a lot of my coverage in the previous videos. So Venom have been making high-performance notebooks since about 2010. There are 2 distinct families in the BlackBook lineup. So you've got the BlackBook Zero range, the ultra portables for business and productivity. And then you've got the BlackBook Pro range, the muscle books, the desktop replacements that basically have 3D rendering capabilities. So the BlackBook Pros are basically built primarily around the GPU, or the graphics processing unit, and then you've got the BlackBook Zeros, which are built primarily around the CPU, so the computer processing unit. And fundamentally, they're different designs. Now, most users are actually going to need the Zero range, which is what I'm covering right here again today. Now, as I've said before, you will find that about 95% users will not require a dedicated graphics card. Onboard CPUs are getting better and better and better still, and they'll literally do more things that traditionally were needed to be done on a dedicated graphics card. So that's a huge saving right there. So I've said this before basically in different ways, but it's becoming more apparent, especially in the last kind of 25, 30 years, that computer companies have told us just to look at performance in a really linear manner. You know, computers like Intel or AMD, they've done a fantastic job at like educating journalists and consumers to solely focus on digital specifications like gigahertz. You know, even the average computer store employee or the retail staff member will just throw fast numbers at you. This simplistic, linear, digital focused message is perpetuated simply because it's an easy message to communicate, and ultimately it sells. Simply, like 3 gigahertz sounds better than 2 gigahertz, right? Isn't it? So let's just have a look though at where this is also changing, that being in cars. You know, 4 wheels, a steering wheel, some doors, not much has changed really, right? But if we take a look at car engines, larger engines in cars no longer actually directly correlates to vehicles with more horsepower, and especially performance isn't necessarily better. And consumers are starting to notice, and manufacturers are actually starting to change how they communicate about vehicle performance, which, if you think about it, is exactly what computers need to start to do. I was recently in a BMW where the new hybrid had a 2-litre engine and was replacing a 3-litre engine. And the 2-litre actually produced double the amount of horsepower that the car or its predecessor actually did. And it did so in using half of the fuel. And so, look, when it comes to computers, this is really what is changing. Consumers are becoming more savvy. And no doubt, if you're watching this video, I imagine you're right up there with them when it comes to that savviness and that looking beyond just the kind of the marketing spiel. So let's take a look at the broader BlackBook range. BlackBook Zeros and Pros are different and need to be viewed separately, although the difference between the Zero 14 Phantom and the Zero 15 Phantom are easier to understand, as opposed to kind of viewing them as 2 completely different machines. So if you're familiar with them, especially from my previous videos, it will make even more sense when we look at it like this. And I think that's probably going to be the easiest way to look at the differences between the Zero 17 Phantom, especially since the first deep dives I did went for nearly 2 hours. On the Zero 14 Phantom and the Zero 15 Phantom went for about an hour. So there's a lot of similarities in there, and they're ultimately all built around the same kind of platform. So watch the 14 Phantom video and then the 15 Phantom review, and if you're already familiar with both of those two, then this review will really pretty much make the most sense, and it kind of just completes the trilogy, as it were. Essentially then, the internals is exactly the same beast as the Zero 14 Phantom, except the Zero 15 and the 17 Phantom support up to 64 gigabytes of extra RAM and have a few extra ports, which we're going to go into in a minute. So really, you're looking at exactly the same high-level performance, just in a larger form factor. So the Zero 17, as the name suggests, is bigger, it's also heavier, and has a slightly different purpose. It's kind of a more of a I work all day from one location or fewer locations kind of sort of size. But it's not really that long ago that it would even be considered heavy for a notebook, because it's really quite incredible that we have a 17-inch notebook that weighs this much, and this is like, it's 100 grams more, or 3.5 ounces heavier than a MacBook Pro 16. And considering the MacBook Pro is 2.15 kilograms, it's really impressive that this is a 17.3-inch screen, whereas you've got a BlackBook Zero 14 and 15, which is, or the 14 is like a kilogram. Screen size really does matter most here in this example. And it's not just because the overall viewing area is obviously larger, but it actually is going to affect the aspect ratio that you experience. So Mac is moving to a 14:9 from 15:10. And either way, that's just a little bit weird, because the strangeness is because that sits actually ultimately between 4:3 or 16:9. And that's kind of used to be a kind of acceptable picture on both a 4:3 or 16:9 screens, as now it's going to be in between. However, like more than 3/4 of all the software applications that are out there are actually designed for a 16:9 ratio. So why the hell are they experimenting on us? Of course, this isn't new, and so I suggest actually sticking to what works best overall, and really the productivity and the staples programs that you're going to be using like Microsoft Office function best in their 16:9 ratio. So keep it simple, don't overcomplicate it. And Apple, I'm talking to you. So now I can come back to the Venom. I've observed now when I was doing this review, and also can confirm again as a Venom BlackBook owner this time around, that Venom goes for functional form and practical performance well over and above any kind of clickbaity or perceived benefit. So check out this screen size comparison on the screen here, and you can see that the 17.3-inch is again best for watching movies, for example, as it's basically wider than it is taller, so suiting that kind of widescreen cinema production. Basically, it's just a heaps better from that angle. So the Venom BlackBook Zero range sits right in between that kind of MacBook Air and also the MacBook Pro, both in terms of a price point, but also performance-wise as well. And so the BlackBook Pro sits above the MacBook Pro in terms of performance, and I'll hopefully be able to actually be covering the Pro in the future with a bit of luck. So the BlackBook Zero 14 Phantom is actually a 13-inch laptop, but with a 14-inch screen. So it can achieve ultimately this through the zero bezels that are super narrow around the edge of the screen. The BlackBook Zero 15 Phantom is actually more of a 14-inch notebook with a 15-inch screen. You're probably spotting a bit of a pattern. And so with the 17 Phantom, this is really kind of super sleek and extremely well built on the 17.3-inch notebook, which is not much larger than actually a kind of old school or even a current mainstream 15.6-inch either Dell or HP laptop. Let's talk screen tech. So the Zero 14 Phantom and the 15 Phantom share the same technology in their screen, but of course the 17 is obviously a little bit bigger. Now, the LPDT, the low power display technology, is a type of tech that Intel co-developed starting back in 2018 with various other kind of screen manufacturers like Sharp. Now, this is a type of tech that is in both the 14, 15 and 17 Zero Phantoms. So low power display technology is what it's called. LPDT consumes about 50% less power than a typical panel's backlight power draw. So I've actually covered this in really strong detail before in some of the other videos. So if you want to have a look at that, jump to some of the specific chapters in those to have a look. But long story short, you can get up to about 16 hours of battery life on the Zero 17 Phantom. What? Now let's talk usable hours. It's actually going to be more like 10, but 17, right? That's if you wanted to go into like apocalypse mode, where you turn all the Wi-Fi off, the Bluetooth off, dim the screen, and even like dial the performance right back with the inbuilt kind of control center app. And theoretically, yeah, you could probably get to 17, but you're probably not going to be doing that. So the LPDT is basically, for a standalone technology, it's just kind of getting lumped in with a lot of the Intel-based processors having that longer life battery technology. LPDT is actually only available on the Zero range because the technology only really works with the Intel U/G line processor, which runs on 15 to 28 watts. Now, I'm not going to go into the kind of processors because again, I covered that extensively in the 014 video, but it's the exact same processor in the 17. So check out the other videos and skip to that chapter if you want to have a look at the different processing units in more detail. Now, remember, all the Intel naysayers out there, especially when it comes to the AMD processors saying that their load's better, when you unplug a laptop with an AMD, they lose 15% of the performance. The CPU really kind of gets dialed right back. And this is how AMD can have amazingly and boast amazing performance, but actually, as soon as you unplug the laptop, it kind of drops. So Venom take the approach that everything is important, and that really means that actually the usable life of that product. So here's why they're ultimately sticking with the Intel rather than going with a fancy pants on paper AMD. So the Ultra Portable is basically classed as an Ultra Portable because the performance behind it doesn't actually drop. With the onboard graphics card built into the computer, you're not going to be rendering the next Terminator franchise, right? So it really makes no sense to have a fancy sounding one, just other than it might sound better. And this is where manufacturers continue to unnecessarily put in these 4K panels on Ultra Portables because it sounds great and it might encourage you to buy it because it sounds really fancy pants. But the reality is when you go and use it, actually you can't fully use it and it's just going to kill your battery life in reality. So if you're not going to use it, especially when it comes to using Microsoft Office or in games, or the power draw from a 4K panel is simply going to make your Ultra Portable a non-Ultra Portable. And so Venom, it's all about what benefits the customer most, not what sounds best on paper. I'm guessing you're probably picking up the repetition in this, so I hope it's coming through. So if you require a 4K panel and you need a serious graphics kind of processing unit, you're probably not going to be suited to a computer like this. You need to go and look at the actual BlackBook Pro range because that's exactly what they're built for. Now bear in mind, just because the actual panel itself isn't 4K, it doesn't mean you can't plug in a 4K monitor. My monitor at home is awesome and I love it, and I plug it in all the time and it goes right up there. It's a huge display and it looks amazing and it works beautifully and also charges the laptop whilst it's plugged in. So amazing functionality, which makes it all really seamless. So the screen on the actual Zero Phantom also covers 100% of the sRGB color spectrum, just like the other 14 and 15 do. Now the Adobe RGB has a wide color gamut as compared to the sRGB, which basically means there are more colors to choose from. And that means that you can have more options in that one. Now, if you have an Adobe RGB camera and you're actually serious about using it or needing it to look at, whether you're a photographer or a videographer, then again, the Pro range is probably better for you. The BlackBook Phantom range has brilliant colors and it is, beautiful blacks when you come to the kind of depth you're looking at, but it really means that you're not going to see that broader display that if you do need that. Also, if you wear glasses, you'll really benefit from the anti-glare standard which comes with the Venom. That means it's basically a matte, non-reflective panel. Now, it doesn't have a touchscreen, as you'll know, because when as soon as you go to a touchscreen, you cover it in your beautiful fingerprints. And so that layer also can be quite frustrating because it becomes reflective as they try and hide the actual coating behind that kind of top layer. So this screen, just like the others, is again really beautiful to look at, and I really love looking at it because awesome battery life, large touchpad, and ultimately a huge display is what makes this one an absolute cracker. At the top of the screen, you've actually got the biometric facial recognition that's actually on the 017 Phantom. Now, it's the Windows Hello certified version, so it works in really beautifully with the Windows setup. So the webcam is a high definition webcam, and you can kind of see me using it right now. And so it's basically what you'll be using for all of those team meetings coming up. So if you still really enjoy working from home, or even if you're using this in kind of a lot of kind of virtual meetings, and there you go. And this also got the dual microphone technology. So it ensures that your voice is recorded in a stereo. So if the person on the other end is listening through headphones or using a headset, then they're actually going to be able to hear your kind of voice in a kind of a 3D, or kind of whether it's coming from the left or the right in kind of an environment. So it's that kind of same sort of thing that if they were basically sat there in front of you, which is a really cool different feature, but makes a massive difference if you are indeed that person. So the infrared cameras, basically they're a bit of a novelty, but they're super, super cool. I actually was working in the dark the other night when my wife is asleep, and there I am, pop it open, and the infrared picks up my face, allows me to access the computer, and I'm in and I'm off straight away. So really super helpful, where you can see that's the infrared up here on the top. And the purpose of this camera is really just to make certain that you can even move away from using passwords for websites, and it makes it far more accessible just by using your face and without you having to kind of tap in any password or even go into a password manager that you might be using. As always with a Venom, your data stays your data. It belongs to you, it's not complicated, and really it shouldn't be complicated, right, when it comes to data, but a lot of companies make it so. So this way, the data doesn't go off to Microsoft. Your biometric data stays with your computer and stays with your computer alone. It doesn't go off to Venom, doesn't go off to Microsoft or anyone else into the cloud or anything like that. So it keeps it really straightforward, keeps it really succinct, and makes sure that your data is secure at all times. Because the data is not actually shared with Venom, you'll need to separately register using their support portal, which is venomhelpdesk.com. So they won't actually get access to your data. So the help support website will mean that you can access their support, questions, and even their on-site warranty that you need to kind of go through and register and make sure that you've got that support for that kind of next 7 years that you'll be using the actual computer. The support is all free, which is super cool, and they're super prompt in coming back to you. I've had to use it a few times when a few things have happened, but I got it sorted ASAP. Now, of course, the 7-year piece is really powerful because it really allows them to come back to, meaning that once you've finished with the computer after 7 years, you can trade it back in. And it means that you're not just, actually, it's not like a credit which you get, but it's actually you become the supplier for Venom, which is really, really cool. And I can't believe the mainstream media haven't actually picked up on this yet. So how does the trade-in actually work? Well, you can use it for that 7-year period, and then you've got up to 30 days after purchasing your new BlackBook to actually send it back in the post, and then it can turn up once it turns, as long as it turns on when it arrives in their office and gets into Windows, then you are good to go. And they'll provide that credit or that return, that cash back to you. And so it's beautiful in terms of, you think about it from an environmental perspective, but also, you know, it's great that you're going to have a guaranteed buyer for the product at the end of it. And it really is quite profound when Venom think about that everything is important. And if you think about it, if e-waste is one of the biggest issues of our time. It's predicted to increase by about 50% in the next 10 years or so. And so by this approach, what it means that Venom actually get to not only hopefully retain you as a customer, but means that they're going to reduce that e-waste and stop it going to landfill even in the first place. So a really super cool program, and massive props to Venom even kind of coming up with it. And certainly this is a super important element when it comes to thinking about your computer and also the full life cycle of it. On to the keyboard. So in short, it is delightful to type on. and it's a great traveling one. So it's kind of actually got a bit of movement to it, and there's some really kind of snappy feedback. As you'll notice, as you'll kind of, if you start typing, it feels very responsive. And what's the kind of the most useful thing is actually the number pad here on the right hand side. So if you need to smash in a lot of data or something like that, that can be really helpful and kind of certainly speed things up. It's got actually similar ergonomics to the 015 Phantom, where when you open the lid like this, the actual MacBook raises slightly off the base or the kind of the rubber pads at the back. So it gives it basically a 15-degree slope. And ultimately, this is kind of like an optimal typing angle and allows for that kind of keyboard experience. So it's slightly slanted, very similar to how you might have if you had an external keypad or keyboard, sorry. And it gives you that flexibility or that kind of freedom to actually use the computer for longer without ruining your posture. So you can also, it's super easy to see the keys from when you're looking down because it's slightly angled. And if you want, you can of course change the color of the behind the keys, and I'll go on to that in just a sec. So when the angle of the screen is about 110 to 130, that kind of gives a nice little ergonomic feel to how you're using it. So yeah, it feels super luxe when you're using this machine, and you can kind of work all day if you want, or it's even as compact enough. Just kind of feels just easy to use, should we say. Talking about the keyboard, you can actually adjust the brightness to the level that is comfortable for you. So you can hit that function plus or minus on the numeric keypad with a 5, and this kind of level of brightness from super illuminated right down to quite a dull or just a light illumination. So you can also launch the control center to access the LED keyboard interface. And in there, you can actually choose from 23 different colors, and you can click around just like this, how you can kind of see it. And the same deal as what's on the 15 Phantom, and I've gone through and done the kind of full scope on that. But either way, you can turn it off if you want. But if you want to stay just kind of under the radar, you can go with the plain vanilla and just kind of have that standard white illumination, and nobody will know that you've got a super fancy pants computer right in front of you. Out of the box, the actual preset is to that whitish blue color. So it's can be quite strong, and you can turn it off or on as much as you want, and yeah, feel free to play around with that kind of illumination, which is kind of a cool but quirky feature. Now, there's lots of keyboard shortcuts which are accessible via the function key, and you can actually access PDF documents via the Venom support and control center app that comes pre-installed in the actual computer. The icon for that app is actually the snake, which sits over here, or the snake monogram that kind of sits in the tray in your taskbar. So if you go over to this section here on the bottom right hand side near the clock, you can actually click into this and it takes you up into this menu. So the shortcut to here will actually take you straight into the Venom help desk, and you can register your computer at My Venom window, which allows you to actually get you set up, and it will mean you can access the support and communicate with the Venom team directly, and allows you to also to access the setup guide. So if you've got any questions, you can check there first before you have to contact them. The power setting window also will give you basically 3 preset options that will control the Windows power settings on the computer. And so it does it at a software level, not a hardware level. It just means that you can again tweak how you want the system to perform. On the you've also got in the application there a piece around the serial number, so that can actually help you register your BlackBook and the options. So that's nice and convenient when it comes to that piece of the tab. And it would also mean that if you choose, you can that application to load, then when to load and where it will also sit as well can also be adjusted for your convenience, and so it's not popping up, get in the way if that's not what you want it to do. If you click the setup guide on page 2 here, there's a diagram called the keyboard hotkeys diagram. So super helpful. And so here you can actually see the shortcuts that I covered in the 015 Phantom video. So you can jump straight to that, and the time marking is below there. And you can skip straight to that chapter for basically more information as to how you can utilize that, because it's exactly the same as what you see on that model. What's different though is that the touchpad is actually even bigger on the 17. And this is a Microsoft Precision touchpad, which is basically a massive win. You can see what that's all about in the actual 015 Phantom video as well, because we go into a lot of detail around, what makes that stand out, but also how it actually learns as you use it, which is a really cool feature. It's much larger on this machine, and it's super fabulous to use. Like it's a beast, and the added real estate is really very helpful. Means you can kind of really move around with a lot of precision. And remember, not all laptops have the Microsoft Precision touchpads, but of course, given Venom's focus, all the BlackBooks indeed do. So while we're on the Microsoft BlackBooks, they currently ship with the Windows 10 Pro software setup. So there's also a free upgrade, which is included with every computer, to take you to the Windows 11 Pro, meaning you don't actually have to choose from either. I updated mine just recently, and it was a super smooth transition, and just means that my start bar moved from the left-hand side to the middle. So if you feel a bit nervous about moving over to Windows 11, don't. It's actually really simple. I found it to be very, very good, and also hasn't at all impacted the performance of my setup, which is awesome. So there's applications that, of course, you might prefer on Windows 10. So if you're happy or you need that functionality to stay on Windows 10, of course, you can do that, and your BlackBook just don't hit the upgrade feature. So Venom continue to supply BlackBooks with the Pro editions of Windows, mainly because it includes the BitLocker device encryption. So what does that mean? Well, it basically means that if your device is lost or it's stolen, BitLocker puts everything onto lockdown, onto a pause, and makes it inaccessible. So basically no one else can access your system. So how does this BlackBook actually feel? Now, it's actually a little different to the 014 Phantom, which is the magnesium alloy chassis, and it's different again to the 015 Phantom, which is extremely sturdy and kind of tight and firm, and that's actually the aluminium structure which is coming from that one. So the 017 Phantom feels solid when you kind of place it onto the desk, and then as you touch it, it feels super firm. As you open it as well, kind of like there's a bit of resistance there, but it's definitely going to be a two-hander, so it's not something you're going to be throwing around, or if you need to balance when you were doing a lecture or something like that, it's not going to be as mobile as that. So it's actually made of 6000 series aluminium, and it's alloyed with magnesium and silicon. So it's much harder than the magnesium which you find in the 14, because that allows you to have the weight saving which you get in the 014 Phantom. This material is actually exactly the same as what's used in aerospace engineering for aeroplanes and even kind of things which might go into space. And this is what allows the machine that can be so thin and powerful while actually feeling extremely solid, smooth, and even cool to touch as you kind of open it and play around with it. And when you're talking about the feel of the product, you can't ignore the actual logo on the lid. It's super unique and super different to what you'll see when you walk into that sea of Apple computers if you walk into any uni or cafe near you. And this gives you a chance to, to really kind of be distinctive out there. And I know that when I sit down in a cafe and open up the lid, I'm often getting a few strange glances and people Googling what the hell a Venom is as I do so. So if you're out there to stand out and you want to be distinctive, then this, of course, is a perfect choice, and it's a real mark of quality. And so what is the Venom logo all about? Well, it actually ties really neatly into the origin story for the brand. Snake Venom in the brand story is a metaphor for the technological kind of knowledge that can be used for good, or indeed it could be used for evil. Exactly how Venom, when it can be used as either a powerful weapon or as a medicine for a human. So it really parallels what computers and the technology can be for and can do for human society and humankind. Ultimately, it's up to the user, right? Whether you use this computer, whether you use technology as a force for good, and inherently, the computers will just enhance what the person is or what their use is rather than actually determining what it will be. So super cool how they've used the logo and tied that in to what the actual story behind what goes on there. And so what do you want to use your Venom for and your computer? What are you out to make a change or do in the world? And so Venom's success really mirrors the very success that its actual customer base wants to also achieve. And that's what's so beautiful about the whole kind of arrangement. Now, I've gone over the performance extensively in the previous 015 Phantom and the 014 Phantom videos, which hopefully by now you've found the links to. So this BlackBook, the 17, also really moves. It is rapid. It's just amazing to see the performance that actually I think it might even run a little bit faster than some of the others that I've used because of all that cooling space. And ultimately that cooling means it can run a little harder and go a little longer than some of the others. So recently I actually got hold of a new MacBook Air. I was issued it when I started a new gig, and it was so clunky when it came to the performance. And I actually had a number of my colleagues, usually the slightly more senior ones, who just complain about the challenges of using that interface and can't bloody well open two windows at the same time. So look, my BlackBook Zero Phantom has been fantastic to use, and the new MacBook has kind of made me miss my BlackBook more and more, especially when I have to kind of use it for work purposes. So, and really the 17 is really something else. So now, touching on the value, some of you have actually said that the Venom is quite an expensive machine. And look, you can't hide, it's certainly going to cost more than some computers out there on the market. But for me, expensive is actually where you pay for something and it doesn't deliver as you expect. So, imagine you go out and buy a Porsche and you're super excited about getting into the Porsche, and then you turn the key and it actually sounds just like a Ford. In that context, you actually feel like you've overpaid. It's a bit like spending $5 on a pair of sneakers or a pair of trainers, depending on where you are. But if you actually buy a Porsche, you turn the key and you actually get a Porsche, then in my experience, you actually get the satisfaction of getting what you actually paid for. And that can be really quite satisfying. Now, I don't mind personally paying a little bit more as long as the product actually genuinely delivers. In fact, I'd rather pay a bit more to make sure I get exactly the right thing. So Venoms, yeah, look, they cost more than some computers, but there is no denying it, and especially having used my computer for close to a year now, what you pay for is you end up getting an exceptional high-performance notebook computer, which doesn't disappoint. Now, it's important to note also that the prices haven't changed for over a year. And so despite inflation, despite what you're hearing around the world, since I've been following Venom, it's actually really encouraging to see that they're able to control some of the costs there, and that they see that they never actually have to have any sales or kind of silly discount things that pop up and try and tempt you to buy something that you don't actually need. So it really means that what they sell is worthy and that what you're getting is the best value in the market, period. And you don't need to kind of hunt it down or watch it kind of mark it in your Google tags to see if you actually can hunt down a sale. And really the way they operate is they just produce enough product to meet demand. I'm gonna skip the benchmarking detail on this one, simply because it's pretty much the same as the 015 Phantom, and we went into a huge amount of detail about how that one stacked up, and spoiler alert, it did really well. So you can kind of check that out by hitting the link below to take you straight through to that review. Now, side note though, is that the benchmarks are actually becoming harder to really make any sense of. And ultimately, it's because manufacturers, especially Apple, we're talking about you right now, is becoming very clever at making their equipment work really well under kind of benchmark or specific conditions. And the challenge with this is that it's fine to have a computer work and demonstrate speed, but as soon as you load it up with programs or you've got multiple things going on, it gets slower. And the way you use it in kind of conjunction with different things, maybe different monitors and different applications, and when you've got your phone tethering or something like that, all of that can affect the performance in different ways. And that's really where benchmarks become a little bit meaningless. Really, like a 1 hour test drive isn't going to tell you anything meaningful when what it's like to actually work with this computer ongoingly and live with it. So guess what though? Of course, my BlackBook hasn't really slowed down at all, and neither will it, because ultimately the way it's designed, it's the same inside. And I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but they're also going through a court case right now where Apple have been slowing down some of their products and been getting wrapped over the knuckles, of course, for it. And even my most recent MacBook, when I was given that from work, you can see the kind of same comparable programs. It just doesn't work quite as well, especially when you load it up with things like Outlook and Excel and Word and PowerPoint. Any of that real chunky processing power, it's blatantly obvious that the Zero Phantom was really kicking ass when it kind of compared to it. Now, as someone who really kind of grew up in that Apple magical, everything seems so great about Apple world, more and more am I reflecting now as to why was I so bamboozled with all their kind of Apple paraphernalia and what had me drink the Kool-Aid. Really, they have some lovely products and I still use their iPhone and rave about it, but does it work seamlessly? Is it really the best in the market? And as soon as you start to, thanks to this gig, I start to see a whole range of different technology out there and start to see that actually there's loads of different things which are far superior, and Venom is certainly a great example of that. Taking a look at the SSD, or the solid state drive, this is the part where all of your data sits. And if you want to think about it in layman's terms, think about a large filing cabinet stuck in your computer. And that's exactly what this part does. So the Zero 17 Phantom is made up of much more than just a fantastic CPU or processor. It's actually the homogeneous high performance design that allows that to all work beautifully together, because otherwise you end up with what looks like a star performer but just has a bunch of fancy products in one spot. And so the Zero 17 Phantom has the same fastest commercially available SSD that is currently available in the world right now. It's made by Samsung and it's the OEM SSD. And if you can find a quicker one, well, actually it doesn't exist, especially for manufacturers of computers. So it's ridiculously fast at 7,000 megabytes per second, and that's literally 50% faster than the previous generation that was even available. It's actually the exact same SSD available in all of the other BlackBooks. And the drive doesn't just mean your notebook can use it though, right? Just because it's in there doesn't actually mean that a normal computer can actually utilize the extra speed or the extra opportunity that component allows. In fact, some manufacturers are guilty where they just literally throw in products like this, but they don't have the drives to support it. And that's what's really quite different and very important to look out for when you're looking at other PCs. Can they actually utilize the SSD and the available storage in there? Because if they don't have the right componentry, well then it just looks fancy on paper, but doesn't actually do the job. The SSD is upgradable in the Zero 17 Phantom, so you can actually have two physically separate drives, and of course this will make your data actually safer, split across the two different drives. It will also allow you to add drives later if you want to buy a single SSD configuration. Of course, when it comes to RAM, how much RAM you have, what type of storage drive that you're using, and of course its configuration are going to make a massive difference for the actual experience on the laptop. And so here with the Zero 17 Phantom, you ultimately have the best of both categories. So on paper, it's great, and in real life, it's also great. And that's to Venom's huge credit. So I've covered this in a previous video, so you can kind of check on that one when it comes to the 015 Phantom, where we kind of did a deep dive around the actual memory and RAM on that one. But of course, you can go crazy with up to 64 gigabytes of RAM in this one. And it's also upgradable, so you can always add more down the track in the future if you want to. Now, this is actually also not soldered, so unlike Dell, HP, Lenovo, and of course Apple, they often solder the memory in, so as soon as you bought it, almost the performance it's downhill from there. So with the Venom, it's about giving you the choice or options that if you want to upgrade down the track, you've got that flexibility and option to upgrade and freedom to do so. So the different spec versions that you can have a look at on their website, of course, the Delta is actually a great entry point. However, I would say that actually the Dark Shadow model or the Dark Shadow Edition is probably the best specification when it comes to a kind of a balance between performance and also value. So check out the Dark Shadow one if that's what you're looking for. And of course, the Midnight or the Midnight Edition with the 64 gigabytes of RAM with the kind of the 2x2 terabyte drives is of course what we all want, albeit secretly, but reality, of course, budgets can dictate, and yeah, there's some great options in there. So with the BlackBook Zero 17 Phantom, like the Zero 15 and 14 Phantom, has removable and upgradable sodium memory slots. So it's a bit of a mouthful there, but the memory can be upgraded at your convenience and whenever you choose to down the track. The 0, 15 and 17 Phantom models also start with the i7 processor, which is arguably like it's the Quantum Edition, which allows you to upgrade that kind of option in the future all the way to the top spec again if you choose. This also means you can change the RAM and the SSD so you can have access to more storage and more memory, extending the life of the product and extending the life of your notebook and the usability without having to compromise its speed and capability. So this is also actually what makes your BlackBook worth buying back off you in 7 years with the Venom trade-in program. So that way they can literally upgrade it upgrade the laptop if they need to, and then they can pass that on to the next customer for your laptop. And of course, this is what Venom are already doing. A lot of companies out there are talking about their green credentials, about how great they are, about looking after the environment, but ultimately it really comes down to what are they doing about the waste, because it's going to be an ongoing issue. Because really, are we thinking about the planet? So, that aside, the BlackBook Zero 15 and also this one with the 17 can take a whopping 64 gigabytes of RAM. So if 16 gigabytes or even 32 gigabytes is plenty today, well, 64 is clearly going to be enough tomorrow when you either decide to upgrade or choose to kind of level things up. So, but I guess the question ultimately comes, why do you want to live like a pauper? Why not go for the 64 gigabytes right now? And that really, it's entirely up to you. There's much flexibility, there's different model options available, and ultimately, whichever one you go with, I don't think you'll end up looking back. And you'll no doubt find that Microsoft Excel never ever ran so smoothly as to when you're actually using it on one of these computers. Mobility wise, and baby, does this computer commute. With Venom claim up to 17 hours of battery life, and that's of course on apocalypse mode. So are you really going to see that? It's unlikely. But of course, if you want to turn the screen down, everything kind of turned off, that's your Wi-Fi connection, Bluetooth, things like that. And of course, unless it's the zombie apocalypse, or maybe you're really in a bit of a pickle at the airport and can't find a plug by trying to squeeze into next to your fellow passenger, I don't really see these numbers being achieved. But, and this is a big but really, or an important one, is that I think every manufacturer's measuring stick, Apple, again, shout out to you guys, their battery life numbers are really quite bogus. They're done with Apple specific applications, whereas professionals, myself and perhaps you, most of us are using Outlook, Excel, spreadsheets, and word processing, and especially PowerPoints as well, and using Zoom too, right? It's kind of all team software. So these are the applications which matter most, and it doesn't really matter what if it's just on specific apps that you can achieve that outcome. Especially is that most people were going to be using a wireless connection and have their screen at least 50, 60% brightness. So manufacturers, if you're listening, come on, let's get real about the performance metrics. And that kind of really speaks to where the MacBook Pro recently, they talked about kind of 7 to 8 hours. If you have those settings, and the MacBook Air is probably about 12 hours at about 150 nits brightness. Again, you might get about 14 or somewhere between that kind of 10 to 14 hours in real life. Again, depending on which applications you're actually using. So a bit of a pain when it comes to that, but it's a really powerful and impressive numbers regardless. Now, of course, performance is really important. And so all the shout outs to the AMD fans or in the Ryzen 7 processor, of course, when that drops, when you take the power out, the performance of that drops by 50% when unplugged. And so, these high performance, ultra portable laptops, if they're not plugged in, they're clearly not going to be performing as well. And so this is where the Intel Core i7 processor that is in the BlackBook Zero really comes into its own. Of course, there is a little bit of droppage. I think it's about 20% in terms of the actual performance. When you unplug the unit, that kind of dials back the CPU. But remember these numbers when you're doing your research or even other people are talking about performance. Performance means a lot of different things. And really, you need a performance computer to actually perform when it's not plugged in to the wall. Because ultimately, you might as well just get a desktop otherwise. And so here's the conundrum when it comes to these performance notebooks, and something to look out for. Coming on to the ports now on the 017 Phantom. I've covered this in extensive detail in some of the previous videos, but we're just going to do a quick run through here. So on the right hand side, closest to the screen, you're actually going to see the Kensington lock slot, which is a way you can kind of lock mechanically your computer to a desk or to a table. Then you've got the RJ45 connection, and that's for the old school secure kind of up to that 1000 gigabyte speeds. And this little flap here will actually open and allow you to insert the connection. And of course, why is there a flap there? Well, actually it's because the computer's so thin that the cable's actually thicker than the cable. Be really careful when you are taking something out of here though, because if you don't pull the actual flap down, it can break off. Next along here is actually the power button. It's pretty straightforward. I actually quite really like having it on the side. It stops you kind of turning it off by accident if you hit the wrong key. And that way you always know where it is when it comes to like just popping it or sliding your finger down the side. The USB 2.0, as you can see here, you can stick into like a keyboard or a mice or something like that. It's a low power consuming option. And then you've got the micro SD for drones, cameras, phones, or whatever you might have. And then you've also got the beautiful 3.5mm mic, or even a headphone jack, God bless them, for either connecting to speakers or just using it in connecting into a headset if you've got a conference call or even you're doing some gaming. On the left at the hinge, you actually have the dedicated power jack, and that connection there you can use with one of the 2 power adapters which come with the computer as standard. You don't have to order a second one, so you can leave one at work and leave one at home. Super helpful, and I've used it again and again and again. Then you have a full-sized HDMI port, and that's for the projector or TVs or monitor you might want to connect to. And then you've got a USB 3.2 backwards compatible port, and then you've also got a USB Type-C port further up. And that's a high-powered one, so you can charge your phone or something like that. It's a Thunderbolt 4 port as well for all the Thunderbolt port magic you may have or may need. And so super convenient, so you can just keep things moving and plug in whatever you've got going on. External display wise, you can run up to two external monitors off this one at the same time. You can use the HDMI port or the USB Type-C Thunderbolt port, and you can have those 2 external up to 4K monitors, exactly the same as the 014 or the 15 Phantom as well. Remember, of course, that actually productivity can be increased dramatically when you're using external monitors. I know previously when Apple made it so difficult to connect an external monitor to a MacBook Air I was using, I moved away from using an external monitor. But these days, it's all about an external monitor. It's lovely to be able to see the full display and have the speed and convenience of going between the two. Now, when it comes, what else is on the laptop? Here you've got the fans at the back, so the hot air is being driven away from your hands. Super discreet and very well placed, which is great. Inbuilt is of course the Intel Wi-Fi 6 card. Again, it's included, so you've got maximum secure wireless speeds, and that makes sure that, you know, wherever you are, airport, home, you're getting at the top access to the internet. So should you buy this? Well, if you're in the market for a 17-inch ultra portable laptop, well, it's pretty slim pickings, and this is absolutely trouncing the competitors. You know, this gives you the convenience of having something which is lightweight. It can fit in a bag, in a rucksack. It's like working on a desktop computer, but you can take it anywhere you want. It's upgradable down the track. It feels light and beautiful to work with, and it feels super solid and lovely to engage with. And it's not only that, it's pieced together by an absolute professionals when it comes to, you know, people who are renowned for the performance of their laptops. Just Google Venom and you'll see exactly what I mean. So should you buy it? If you're looking for a 17, it's an absolutely no-brainer. And if you want to do that, please go to shopvenom.com. You'll find all the access to their website there. You can order from the US, UK, Australia, it doesn't matter where you are, and it will affix into your local currency. You'll see the pricing available there, and we certainly hope you have a great experience using Venom. We as a company love using their products. I'm a customer of Venom, and so I've certainly become very bullish about how Venom do things, and I'm proud to be able to do these reviews for Deep Tech Dive, and thanks again for tuning in.